Welcome to the review of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Pool of Radiance. This game was created in 1988 by Strategic Simulations. It's the first in the series of what's called the Gold Box series. When the game begins, you're asked to create a party. Here it shows all the different races you have to choose from: dwarf, elf, gnome, half-elf, halfling, and human. We're going to start our party with a male dwarf, and we're going to choose fighter as our first class. You also have to choose an alignment. We're going to choose chaotic good for our dwarf. This takes us to the character details screen, which shows attributes, gold, armor, hit points, etc. You can keep re-rolling the character until you get the desired attributes you want. That looks good. So now after selecting, you type in the name, and then you get to choose the head graphic and the body graphic for the character. Some of the body graphics are absolutely absurd with the head graphic, but you can't expect too much from a 1988 game. So I think we're going to pick this one. After creating the portrait picture, you can also create the icon picture. You can cycle through the various graphics for the head and weapons, and you can also change color for the various body parts. Here we selected the head image that looks most like a dwarf, and now we're changing the weapon, looking for something appropriate for a fighter. Big battle axe. There we go. That's what we need. Now we can change the color of the body parts. Since he's bare-chested, let's make something appropriate. Once finished, you say keep, and then you return to the main screen where you can create your next character, which is going to be a male elf fighter magic user. Some of the races, such as elves, can be multi-class. Here we're going to choose a fighter magic user. And then for our alignment, we'll choose true neutral. Again, cycle through the randomness, waiting to get some good statistics. That looks quite good for a fighter magic user, especially being an elf. Give it a name, and repeat the process. This time we're going to do a half-elf female. Half-elves have the most classes that they can be as far as multi-class. Let's see. This time we're going to choose a cleric magic user. Lawful good. Flip through the rest, create the rest of the characters. And after doing so, you're ready to assemble your party. The order in which you add them to your party is the order in which they'll appear. But don't worry, you can always reorder them later. So let's show who's going to be adventuring with us. A human cleric, a half-elf fighter magic user thief, an elf fighter magic user, a dwarf fighter, half-elf cleric magic user, and an elf magic user. There's a built-in cheat feature in the game when creating new characters where you can modify them and change their attributes. Here I'm going to raise the dwarf's constitution to 19, solely to show you a feature later in the game which is very cool. That's the only cheat I'm going to use, so let's begin the game. When you start, you're greeted by this character named Rolf. This guy looks like a Rolf. Basically, he just introduces himself and he gives you a quick tour of the city. I'm not going to show you the entire tour because it's really boring and it takes a long time, but as you can see, when you move around on the map, the upper left side of the screen shows a first person's perspective. So basically you spend a lot of the time in the game running around like this. You can also see an overhead bird's eye view, such as this. I prefer this mode most of the time. Since this is a role-playing game, of course there's shops where you can purchase weapons and armor. On the left side shows the type of gear, on the right side is the price, and gold pieces. Here we're going to equip a longsword, banded mail, and shield for a fighter magic user. The party can pool all their money together, and then it can be shared, which splits it across all party members. Another important feature in the game is the ability to make camp. This is where a party member can rest, cast spells, save the game, all sorts of things. It's not wise to rest in the open, so luckily for the party there's various inns distributed in the town. It only costs 1 platinum piece, and then the party can rest in peace. The way magic works in this game is quite unusual. Instead of having magic points, you have to memorize spells. Here our magic user is memorizing sleep. Now this is our cleric magic user. You'll notice he has a lot more spells. This is because clerics automatically get all the spells for their level. You also get more to memorize. The cleric gets 3, whereas the magic user only gets 1. This is our cleric. Cure Light Wounds is an extremely useful spell, so we're going to memorize that one. And our fighter magic user gets to memorize 1. You'll notice I'm always choosing sleep, and I'll describe that later. Memorizing the same spell multiple times means that's how many times you can cast a spell. So now all that's left to do is hit R for rest and watch the characters memorize their spells. It takes 5 hours for our party to totally memorize all those spells. There's also a menu option for Alter, in which you can change the order of the party. You can speed up or slow down the game. So it's not so painfully slow for you. I'm speeding it up to level 2. And we're going to change the order of the party here. You select a member, and then you select where you want to place them. Obviously we don't want a 4 hit point character up toward the front. Now it's time to jump into some action. Throughout the game you'll run into random enemies and set enemies. Here we ran into some orcs. And now it looks like it's our magic user's turn in combat, so we're going to cast a spell and narrow in on the area of the orcs. You'll notice the right side of the screen shows the status, what's happening. Sometimes if it's too far to cast a spell, you can abort it, as demonstrated there. Other spells aren't cast instantly. It requires some time before you can pull them off, such as Cure Light Wounds. Spells aren't the only thing you aim. You also aim ranged weapons. Here our magic user throws 3 darts at a kobold. You can also use the next and previous, and it will automatically jump across targets. Weapons such as oil flasks and darts use up the count as they go, while slings have an unlimited amount of ammo. Now that we've covered ranged weapons, let's cover melee weapons. You move around on the map and then you push in the direction in which you want to attack the enemy. As fighters increase in level, they get the ability to do what's called a sweep. And rogues get a special ability called Backstabbing. Being a turn-based role-playing game, the characters take turn one at a time. Armor class and Thaco determine how likely a character is to hit an enemy. Some enemies, when they're helpless, such as sleeping, and if we aim on this target here, we can see on the right side, are sitting ducks. One hit, even with the simplest weapon such as a dart, and they're dead. Once finished with combat, you have your character's guard or quit, and then you're presented with the experience point page. If the enemy was carrying money or treasure, you're taken to this screen where you can pick up the money and the items. Sometimes there'll be a wide variety of items, and you won't know which is magical and which is normal. If you cast Detect Magic, it will show you.